Hey, welcome to LI Retro Pickups. I'm John. I'm here with Mr. George Portugal, and we're here with the PSX hardware, only released in Japan. George, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this hardware, what's in it, what it does, and what makes it special.
Yeah, sure thing. We were really lucky to get this recently for Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and so as John mentioned, the PSX is a combination of a PlayStation 2 and a DVR. And as you can see here on the CRT, we've got it going here, and it behaves very much like the cross-media bar that you see on the PlayStation 3. In fact, this interface that you see here is the early beginnings of that.
The first implementation of it.
Yeah, it's the first. It's exactly. It's the first implementation of that, and it works in the same kind of way. So you've got your menu here for your memory card, and then you've got here. This is actually a TV tuner. So this lets you go through all the various channels in Japan.
And remember when you can tune TVs, good people?
That's right.
Yeah.
Over here in this menu, we've got the record. These are actually recordings. So the previous owner of this console recorded a couple of things on television, and so we'll go through this in more detail in a moment. But you also can take media like MP3s and recorded audio. You can transfer it to the PSX using the various ports over here on the front, and you can play that stuff back. Same thing applies here for photos, and then it's got a settings menu that lets you adjust a whole variety of settings on the console. So, this was a time during which Sony was already adding in multimedia features to their consoles. That was a big selling point of the PlayStation 2, the fact that it was a combination of a DVD/CD player and a games
DVR
console.
recorder, which, I mean, at the time, that was beginning to be a big thing. Remember, they had I think the TiVo was the big one
At
then,
least in
right?
the United States,
in
yeah.
the US,
yeah,
so,
but
to have that as a feature is very interesting. Another thing too that makes this unique in terms of actually the way it was sold is this was not sold by Sony computer division. This was sold by the regular entertainment division. So you wouldn't see this advertised alongside your regular PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 as a gaming machine. This was marketed more as a multimedia machine to kind of attract the more the gamer crowd, but the non-gamer crowd. So the people who wanted to play games, but more casual gamers, and wanted to actually use this for different things, such as video editing, such as a DVR,
that's interesting,
were able to kind of use that as well. So, interesting idea, which ultimately failed.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other reasons why this idea didn't work out too. So it's pretty well known that PSXs are notoriously very fragile. So the way that they design this console, it generates quite a lot of heat. It's very compact, and they have a tendency to overheat. They have a tendency to fail, and the hard drives on these, they're encrypted, and to my knowledge, the encryption on these hard drives has not yet been broken. So it's not like one could say take a stock hard drive, encrypt it with the PSX, encryption scheme, and then install it in here and replace it. So once these hard drives go, they go. And so, I mean, as a result, they even back in the day, they didn't last too long, and so they're really fragile, and so we're very lucky to have one that works.
Imagine paying all that money and then all of a sudden, you kaput. Like, what are you going to do? So while we're talking about the hardware, George, why don't you show us a little bit about the connections and how we're able to get video out of this thing and how the controller ports work and all of that. So
yeah, sounds good. Let's come in and take a quick look. Alright, so this is the front panel of the console, and I imagine most people would have actually had it in this position when they're using it, not the way I had it vertically earlier. So it's got a front panel right here that you open up, and so you can see it has your standard ports right here for your memory sticks, so that totally makes sense. It's got these little buttons here which do control things when you've got it in one of the media modes. You've got a USB port, and this is very consistent with the PS2, and I think this is mostly used for peripherals on the PS2. You've got a memory stick Pro right here, and so this is an older kind of data storage media like SD, for instance, and so you would have your music and your videos, and you could insert this in here, and I think as long as it's FAT32 formatted, it's detected by the console, and you can transfer over your media so that you can play it back on your PSX. It's got this little hard disk light indicator and disk light indicator over here. If you hit this quit game button, it will, quit your game. And then you've got your eject button right over here on this as well. I believe these disk loading mechanisms are also rather delicate and sensitive because it's, it's motorized and it just feeds it in and spits it out. So that's true about lots of hardware from, 20 or so years ago. Like the rubber belts in here go bad and the motors might tire out, or maybe the gears, so it can be tough to maintain those as well. let me go ahead and flip the console over onto the back here, and I can show you some of the cool ports that this thing has. So, as you can see here, you've got your RF jack for the TV tuner. So your TV receiver would go in here, and so you have an in and an out. So you can feed data in from some other source via RF over here. So that's the recording function, and you can also feed data out as well. Probably the weirdest thing about the the PSX rather, is the fact that you've got your controller ports in the back. So, you know, this makes it tough if you want to plug in and disconnect your controllers. Like, you better basically just plug them in and never disconnect them again. It also makes it impossible to use things like the multi-tap because it's physically too big. It just doesn't go in there. You'll also notice that there are different video ports here as well. So there's S-video, so you can do S-video in and out. You also have composite video in and out, and that's what we've got it connected to right now. Interestingly enough, it does not use the standard PlayStation composite video jack, so that port is actually missing on here, and that kind of goes to what John was talking about earlier about this being really like intended as a multimedia device. You'll notice that it has a digital port here for sound, so you can get digital audio out. It's blocked, but I believe it does have an Ethernet port here as well for some of that multimedia, or for some of that like network play functionality that certain PlayStation games offered. And so yeah, that's the back of the console in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cross media bar in more detail, and we can actually show you the quality of what recordings look like on this console, since the previous owner thankfully left us a couple of examples. So I'm just going to pick this one right here, and again, if you guys have ever played a PS3, this should be very familiar to you because it does literally the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit circle here because it's backwards from America. Circle means yes, X means no. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So this is a soccer match. And you can see that the quality of the video is actually quite crisp. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was filmed on S-video, just because it looks really, really sharp. So, you know, this was a really nice tool in the Japanese household at the time because, you know, people wanted more control over what they watched, and they wanted control of when they watched it. And so you could use this to time shift when you were watching TV. And instead of relying on VHS or some of the older media standards, you could just have everything conveniently in one location on the PSX. All right. Yeah, when it boots up, it just assumes you've got it plugged into a cable TV service or to an antenna, so it just expects you to have TV running. So even though it's, and I turned off the volume, but like it's generating that classic white noise static thing. So this is actually normal for the PSX, and it doesn't change that until you boot into some sort of you know, video like this. And so now it'll look good, and then if I go back, now you can see everything is nice and crisp and clear again.
I mean, I think this is, you know, this is an interesting, this is almost like a missing link sort of console, you could say, because this, I think, really bridged the gap between the PS1 and PS2 and then going into the PS3.
Yeah, you can see a lot of ideas from the PS3 that show up here, definitely.
You could see that this was Sony's attempt to sort of kind of bring everything into, you know, the next level of multimedia and just making consoles less, you know...
Yeah, just one device to do everything.
Exactly.
One device to do everything. Yeah.
And you have to wonder if this was almost in response to the Xbox coming out, which is around the same time, I think 2003. And remember, the Xbox was, it was marketed as, you know...
It was far more multimedia. And even though the Xbox was kind of a failure in Japan, they didn't really sell all that much, but maybe they saw some of those ideas and realized, like, hey, this is...
Of course, yeah.
This makes sense. Let's try to implement some of this.
Yeah.
So that's it for this video, and we're going to have this console available for people to take a look at the next Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. And, you know, if you guys like this kind of content, then consider subscribing to the channel. We've got all sorts of interesting stuff going on. We'll have more retro pickups in the future that we can talk to you guys about. And, yeah, thanks again for watching, and we will see you guys next time.